You begin with a familiar stance. You see the world as an individual. Perception feels private. Thought seems to belong to you. The idea of seeing as God sees appears impossible, even improper. It sounds like omniscience. It sounds unreachable. Yet the question presses, if reality is one, why would vision be many? Ibn Arabi entered at this point of doubt. He argued that perception is not owned by the self. He proposed that all acts of knowing occur within the field of being. If being is single, then every act of seeing is an instance of the same awareness. Your role is a locus, not a source. The challenge is not to gain divine power, but to correct a mistaken attribution. If awareness is one, what exactly does my vision mean? You notice how quickly the mind claims perception. It points to a body. It draws a line around experience. It then treats the line as real. This habit is useful for action, yet it distorts understanding. You confuse function with ontology. Ibn Arabi explained that the intellect organizes differences, but organization is not separation. The map is not the territory. When you rely only on categorization, you take the instrument to be the ground. The result is friction. You try to protect an owner that your own analysis cannot locate. If the owner is unclear, what is truly doing the seeing? Can you examine perception without presuming possession? Ibn Arabi, the Andalusian sage of the 12th and 13th centuries, developed a disciplined account of unity. He described existence as continuous self-disclosure. The real knows itself by appearing in many forms and perspectives. He did not abolish difference. He situated difference within a single ground dot in this view. The sacred is not far. It is present as the condition of any appearance. Seeing as God sees is not a claim to status. It is a correction of reading, from private vision to shared awareness. The controversy around his view came from this proximity. Unity sounded dangerous to ears trained by separation. You want a formula. Ibn Arabi offered one. Vision, he said, belongs to the real. What you call my seeing is the real seeing at this point of manifestation. The perceiver and the perceived are two relations within one awareness. Ownership is a convenient story, not a fact. You test the idea. When a thought appears, did you design it or did it arrive? When a judgment forms, did you build it from nothing or did it surface? The more closely you look, the less you find an author. You find conditions. You find participation. If authorship weakens under scrutiny, what remains but the act of awareness itself? You hesitate. If perception is not yours, what becomes of responsibility? You worry that unity might erase ethics. You fear indifference. The concern is serious. Ibn Arabi addressed it directly. Participation is not passivity. He distinguished source from role. The source is the real. The role is your specific configuration. Responsibility belongs to the role. Clarity belongs to the source. To recognize that awareness is one does not cancel action. It grounds it. You act as a trustee, not as an owner. This reduces the need to defend a separate self while increasing care for what appears through you. Can accountability mature when ownership softens? You begin to notice a change. Perception becomes less about control and more about accuracy. Instead of forcing reality into your preferences, you ask what is being shown here. You move from assertion to recognition. Ibn Arabi would call this the discipline of witnessing. It is not passive. It is exact. The self still functions, but it no longer claims center stage. This shift reduces inner noise. It allows a measured attention that stays with the fact rather than the fantasy about the fact. The world is not an object to conquer, nor a riddle to flee. It is disclosure. If disclosure is the rule, what does defense protect? You return to the key claim. The perceiver and the perceived are relations within one awareness. This sounds abstract. You want precision. Ibn Arabi clarified, relation does not mean equivalence. God is not the world, and the world is not God, but the world has no being apart from the real. Likewise, the finite seer is not the infinite, yet the act of seeing derives from the infinite. The distance is qualitative, not spatial. What you bring as an individual is a certain angle of disclosure. What you cannot bring is autonomous being. With this distinction, humility and proximity can coexist. Does reverence deepen when separation is removed but distinction remains? A clearer stance emerges. You do not need to extend perception to infinity. You need to remove the false limit that declares perception private. The act of seeing is already universal in source, particular in form. This is not exaltation. It is sobriety. Ibn Arabi's forbidden language aimed to undo the reflex of distance. He spoke as if God were the seer of every sight because, in his logic, only the real truly is. The rest are modes. When this is grasped, the struggle to secure a separate vantage point relaxes. Seeing is given. Your task is to keep it accurate. Can accuracy replace ambition as the measure of perception? You test the result. When perception is not owned, agitation lessens. There is less argument with what is shown. There is more room for correction. You can say, "I was wrong," without collapse. Because identity is not at stake. Ibn Arabi would call this clarity a sign of alignment. When awareness returns to its ground, it becomes steady. It does not require special states. It requires precise recognition. The real is the knower. You are the locus. From that stance, attention is firm and flexible. Can steadiness be maintained in conflict or only in ease? The question invites practice. You ask how to live this insight among tasks, roles, and pressures. The answer is structured and modest. Ibn Arabi's guidance. Let perception serve truth rather than preference. Use distinctions, but do not turn them into separations. In speech, state what is supported, not what flatters identity. In decision, choose what aligns with clarity, not what enlarges ownership. In error, correct without drama. In success, attribute the act to the real and the responsibility to your role. This practice is simple, not easy. It is maintained by returning again and again to the same recognition. Vision belongs to the real. What changes when this sentence becomes habitual? A final hesitation remains. Does this view diminish reverence? If seeing is God seeing through you, does worship lose distance and therefore awe? Ibn Arabi's answer reorders devotion. Distance is not the essence of reverence. Truth is. Devotion matures when the object of devotion is recognized as the ground of the devotion itself. You are not equal to God. You are dependent in being and act. Yet the very dependence is intimate. Gratitude deepens because every capacity, including the capacity to recognize unity, is received. The bow is not erased. It is clarified. It bends from understanding rather than fear. Can worship be both mere and humble? Return to the opening question. You asked how to see the world as God sees. You learn that the task is not to add power, but to remove error. Perception does not need to become divine. It already occurs within divine awareness. Your correction is attribution, from possession to participation. The self continues as a precise function. The real remains the source and measure. This ending is not a climax. It is a stable posture. See each appearance as disclosure. Act from accuracy. Accept correction. Let responsibility stand without ownership. When vision is grounded this way, the division between observer and observed loses force. What remains is a single fact, awareness recognizing itself through every form. That is enough.